The train whistle screamed through the Wyoming Territory landscape. As Emma Oliverson clutched her leather journal against her chest, watching the town of Guthrie materialize through clouds of steam and dust in the September heat of 1883. Her heart hammered so hard, she thought the other passengers might hear it, and her fingers traced the worn edges of the book that held every dream she had dared to write since she was 15 years old. The pages contained sketches of horses running free, recipes for pies she had never tasted, descriptions of sunsets over mountains she had never seen, and most importantly, hopes for a love that felt real and deep and true. She had answered the advertisement from Quentin because his letter promised partnership rather than servitude, and because something in his careful penmanship suggested a man who thought before he acted. The platform was crowded with cowboys, merchants, and women in calico dresses, but Emma spotted him immediately. He stood a full head taller than most men around him, wearing a dark blue shirt and worn denim pants, a black hat shading eyes that scanned the emerging passengers with what looked like genuine nervousness. His jaw was strong and clean-shaven, unusual for the territory, and his shoulders carried the kind of breadth that came from years of physical work. When their eyes met, she saw him straighten, and something flickered across his face that looked almost like wonder. "Miss Oliverson." His voice carried easily over the noise, deep and warm. "Mr. Quentin." Emma descended the steps carefully, her traveling dress dusty from 2 weeks of rail travel. She had worn her best green dress, despite knowing it would get dirty, wanting to make a good impression even though she had no illusions about her appearance. She was plain-faced with brown hair and gray eyes, tall for a woman at 5 feet 7 inches, and built more for work than for delicate drawing rooms. Austin removed his hat, revealing sandy brown hair that fell across his forehead. He looked to be in his mid-20s, perhaps 26 or 27, and his face held an openness that immediately eased some of her anxiety. "I hope the journey was not too difficult. I know it is a long way from Pennsylvania." "It was long," Emma admitted, adjusting her grip on both her journal and her small carpet bag. "But I spent the time looking at the country. It is so different from anything I have known, in good ways or bad." He reached for her bag and she let him take it, though she kept the journal firmly in her possession. "Just different. The sky seems bigger. The land seems to go on forever." She paused, then decided honesty was the best policy from the start. "It is a little frightening if I am being truthful." Something in his expression softened. "That is a fair response. I have lived here 5 years now, came out from Missouri after my parents died, and there are still mornings I wake up feeling small against all this space." He gestured toward the wagon at the edge of the platform. "The ranch is about an hour outside town. It is not much, but it is mine. Well, ours now, I suppose, if you decide to stay after we talk properly." The qualification surprised her. "You are giving me a choice, of course." Austin looked genuinely confused by her question. "Did you think I would force you into anything? The whole point of the letters was to see if we might suit each other. Letters can only tell so much. If you meet me and decide this is all a terrible mistake, I will put you up at the boarding house in town and pay for your return ticket east." Emma felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. She had heard stories of mail-order brides who arrived to find their situations nothing like what had been promised, men who wanted servants or worse. "That is kind of you." "It is decent of me," Austin corrected gently. "Kindness should not be remarkable." He loaded her bag into the wagon, then helped her up onto the seat. His hands were calloused, but his touch was careful, and he released her the moment she was settled. "There is a canteen of water under the seat if you are thirsty." "It is clean. I pulled it from the well this morning." As they rolled out of town, Emma watched Guthrie pass by. It was a raw frontier town, barely 3 years old, with wide dirt streets and buildings that still smelled of fresh lumber. The saloon stood next to a general store, and across from that, a church with a white steeple that looked almost defiant in its civility. Cowboys rode past, and she saw Native Americans too, trading at one of the stores, a reminder that this land had belonged to others not so long ago. "What are you writing about?" Austin's question pulled her attention back. She had not realized she had opened her journal, but her hand had gone to it automatically, her fingers tracing the edge of a page. "Not writing, just holding it. I do that when I am nervous." Emma closed the journal, then reconsidered and opened it again. "It is full of dreams, things I have wanted to do or see or become. I have been keeping it since I was 15. I am 21 now, so 6 years of hoping. May I ask what kinds of dreams?" His tone was curious but not pushy, and he kept his eyes on the road, giving her privacy in her decision. Emma took a breath. If this was to work, they needed honesty between them. Learning to ride a horse really well, not just sitting sedately but actually riding. Making a perfect apple pie like my grandmother used to make before she died. Seeing the Rocky Mountains up close. Learning to shoot a gun accurately. Having a garden with vegetables and flowers both, not just practical things. Reading all of Shakespeare's plays. Sleeping under the stars. Having a marriage where my husband actually talks to me like I have thoughts worth hearing. She stopped, feeling heat rise to her face. That last one probably sounds presumptuous. It sounds like the bare minimum of what a marriage should be. Austin was quiet for a moment, then added, "I cannot promise I am eloquent, but I can promise I will always listen. And I think we can manage most of those other things too. I have horses, obviously. My mother's recipe box is in the kitchen, and there is definitely an apple pie recipe in there. The Rockies are a few days' ride west. I have several guns and ammunition to spare for practice. The growing season is short but intense this far north, and you can plant whatever you want. I do not have much Shakespeare, but there is a lending library in town that is surprisingly well stocked. And the stars here are so bright they will take your breath away." Emma turned to stare at him fully. "You would help me with all of those things?" "Why would I not?" Austin glanced at her, his blue eyes serious. "If we are going to be married, if we are going to build a life together, should it not be a life that makes us both happy?" "Your dreams are not frivolous, Emma. May I call you Emma?" "Yes, and I will call you Austin." She felt something flutter in her chest, something that might have been hope or might have been the beginning of something deeper. "No one has ever taken my journal seriously before. My aunt thought it was silly nonsense, time wasted that should have been spent on practical matters." "Your aunt sounds like she had forgotten how to hope for things." The wagon crested a hill and Austin pulled the horses to a stop. "There, that is the ranch." The view spread out before them like a painting. A valley of golden grass rippled in the wind, bordered by dark pine forests on the slopes of distant hills. A creek cut through the property, marked by a line of cottonwood trees, their leaves already beginning to turn yellow. The house was small, a simple log structure with a covered porch and a stone chimney, but it looked solid and well maintained. A barn stood nearby, larger than the house, and she could see horses in the corral, their coats gleaming in the afternoon sun. Beyond that, a chicken coop, a root cellar built into a hillside, and what looked like the beginning of a fence line stretching toward the creek. "It is beautiful," Emma breathed. "Truly beautiful." "It is isolated," Austin said honestly. "Town is an hour away, like I said. The nearest neighbor is the Patterson Ranch, about 5 miles north. Winter is hard and long. The work never stops. I am trying to build a good herd, but that means long hours and sometimes danger from wolves or rustlers or just bad luck. I do not want to paint it prettier than it is." "I did not come west expecting easy," Emma said. "I came because I was tired of being a burden to my aunt, sleeping in her attic and taking her charity. I came because I wanted to build something of my own, even if I had to come all this way to find someone willing to let me try. Show me the house." Austin smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face from merely handsome to something that made her heart skip. "Yes, madam." The house was simple but clean. One main room served as kitchen and living area, with a black iron stove, a sturdy table and chairs, and 2 rocking chairs near a stone fireplace. A ladder led to a loft space above, and Austin explained he had been sleeping up there. A door led to a small bedroom on the ground floor, added just last year. "I built the bedroom thinking ahead," Austin said, and she heard the slight embarrassment in his voice. "Thought if I ever married, my wife should have the option of privacy until she felt comfortable with other arrangements. The loft is perfectly adequate for me." Emma set her journal on the table, her fingers lingering on the leather cover. "That was very considerate. I appreciate having time to adjust to all of this. Are you hungry?" "I am not much of a cook, but I can manage bacon and beans and biscuits that are only a little like rocks." Despite her nervousness, Emma laughed. "I am a good cook. My aunt made sure I could manage a household. Why don't you show me what supplies you have and I will make us dinner?" "I am not going to put you to work your first day here." "Austin, I have been sitting on trains for 2 weeks. I would welcome the chance to do something useful with my hands." Emma moved toward the kitchen area, taking stock of the supplies with an experienced eye. Flour, salt, lard, dried beans, a few eggs in a bowl, bacon wrapped in cloth, some sad-looking potatoes, and not much else. "Tomorrow we should go to town and get proper supplies, but for tonight I can work with this." As she cooked, Austin tended to the horses and other evening chores, but he stayed mostly in sight, and she appreciated that he was giving her space without disappearing entirely. She found herself watching him through the window as he worked, noting the efficiency of his movements, the way he spoke gently to the animals. A black and white dog appeared from somewhere, dancing around his feet, and she heard him laugh at something the creature did. They ate dinner at the table as the sun set outside, turning the sky shades of pink and gold that seemed impossible in their intensity. Emma had managed decent biscuits, crispy bacon, and beans doctored with a little bacon fat and the wild onions she had spotted growing near the house. "This is the best meal I have eaten in months," Austin said, and she could tell he meant it. "Maybe years. It is just simple food. Simple and good are not opposites." He finished his plate and leaned back in his chair. "So, what do you think? Can you see yourself staying here at least long enough to give this a real chance?" Emma looked around the house, then out the window at the darkening landscape. Fear still sat in her stomach like a stone, but underneath it was something else. Possibility. Hope. The sense that maybe, just maybe, she had found someone who would not dismiss her dreams as foolishness. "Yes, I would like to try, but I want to be honest with you about something." "All right. I know we wrote letters and I know we are meant to get married, but I do not know you. Not really. And you do not know me. I am willing to work toward a marriage, but I need time to feel certain. Is that acceptable?" Austin nodded slowly. "That is more than acceptable. That is wise. How about this? We give ourselves 2 months. We spend that time working together, talking, getting to know each other properly. At the end of 2 months, if either of us feels this will not work, no hard feelings. I will make sure you are taken care of either way." 2 months, Emma agreed. "That seems fair." They shook hands across the table, and Emma felt the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip, and the care with which he held her hand, firm enough to mean something but gentle enough not to hurt. That night, Emma lay in the small bedroom, her journal open on her lap by candlelight. She wrote about the journey, about Austin's face when he first saw her, about his immediate offer to help with her dreams, about the beauty of the valley and the fear and hope warring in her chest. When she finally blew out the candle, she could hear Austin moving quietly in the loft, settling in for the night, and she felt safer than she had expected to feel. The next morning, Emma woke to the smell of coffee and found Austin already dressed, standing at the stove with a pot percolating. Sunlight streamed through the windows, golden and clear. "I thought we could go to town today," he said when she emerged from the bedroom, having dressed quickly in a simple work dress. "Get those supplies you mentioned, and I can introduce you to people. We should also see Reverend Matthews about setting a wedding date, even if that date is 2 months from now. It will make things more proper, you staying out here." "People will talk regardless," Emma said, accepting the cup of coffee he handed her. It was strong and black and exactly what she needed. True enough. But I would prefer to minimize the talk if possible. Not for my sake, but for yours. Small-town gossip can be cruel, especially to women. They took the wagon back to town, and Emma watched the landscape with fresh eyes in the morning light. The grass rippled like water, and she saw a pronghorn antelope in the distance, their white rumps flashing as they bounded away from the road. Hawks circled overhead, riding thermals she could not see. "Tell me about Missouri," Emma said. "About your life before here." Austin was quiet for a moment, his hands steady on the reins. "My father was a school teacher, my mother took in sewing. We were not wealthy, but we were comfortable. They died within a week of each other when a fever came through town. I was 21, same age as you are now, and I suddenly had no reason to stay. Missouri felt like it was closing in on me, full of memories and no future. I had read about the opportunities out west, about the Homestead Act and the chance to claim land and build something from nothing. So I sold what little there was, bought a horse and supplies, and came out here. I worked on other people's ranches for 3 years, learning everything I could, saving every penny. 2 years ago, I filed a claim on this land and started building. Do you miss Missouri, your parents? Every day, but I also feel like this is where I am supposed to be. Does that make sense?" Emma nodded. "My parents died when I was 12. A factory accident, both of them worked at the same textile mill. I went to live with my aunt, my mother's sister, and she was not cruel, but she was also not warm. I was a duty to her, not a joy. I worked in a dress shop for years, sewing other women's beautiful clothes and coming home to her attic. When I saw your advertisement, it felt like a door opening. I was terrified, but I was also suffocating where I was. I am glad you were brave enough to walk through that door." Austin glanced at her, and the sincerity in his face made her throat tight. The general store in Guthrie was run by a couple named Harrison and Margaret Foster, and they greeted Austin warmly before turning curious eyes on Emma. "This is Emma Oliverson," Austin said, his hand resting lightly on her back, a gesture of support rather than ownership. "She came in on yesterday's train. We are planning to marry, and we need supplies for the house." Margaret Foster was a stout woman with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair. She looked Emma over with an assessing gaze that was more curious than judgmental. "Mail order bride." "Yes, madam." Emma met her eyes steadily, refusing to be ashamed. Smart girl. "Eligible men outnumber eligible women about 10 to 1 out here. No sense waiting around back east when opportunity is here." Margaret came around the counter. "What do you need, dear?" Emma pulled out the list she had made that morning, and Margaret helped her gather flour, sugar, yeast, salt, various spices, dried fruit, coffee, tea, canned milk, fresh eggs, cheese, bacon, salt pork, dried beans, rice, potatoes, onions, and a few precious fresh vegetables that had come in on the same train Emma had arrived on. Austin added ammunition, nails, and some tools he needed, and the pile on the counter grew. "You will also want fabric," Margaret said. "A woman needs more than one dress out here, especially for work. The labor is hard on clothes." Emma hesitated, thinking of the limited money she had brought with her, but Austin was already nodding. "Pick out what you need, and get enough to make a nice dress too, something for town and church." "Austin, I cannot let you spend so much. Emma, we are going to be partners. What I have is yours too. That is how this works." He said it simply, as if it were obvious, and Margaret smiled approvingly. By the time they finished shopping, the wagon was full, and Emma had fabric for 3 work dresses and 1 good dress, plus thread, needles, and buttons. Austin had spent more than she had thought he should, but he seemed unconcerned about the expense. Their next stop was the church, a white clapboard building with a simple cross above the door. Reverend Matthews was a thin man in his 50s with wire-rimmed spectacles and a firm handshake. He listened as Austin explained the situation, his expression neutral. "I appreciate your honesty about the circumstances," the Reverend said. "Many couples would simply claim a prior acquaintance. The fact that you are giving yourselves time to be certain speaks well of you both. Shall we say the first Sunday in December for the wedding? That gives you just over 2 months, and it is before the worst of the winter weather typically sets in." "That sounds perfect," Emma said. "I will need to meet with you both several times before then, to counsel you on the spiritual aspects of marriage. Can you come to town once a week?" "We will make it work," Austin promised. As they loaded back into the wagon, Emma felt the weight of reality settling on her. This was truly happening. She was going to marry this man she barely knew, in a place she had only just arrived, far from everything familiar. But when Austin smiled at her as he helped her onto the wagon seat, she felt that flutter of hope again, stronger this time. "One more stop," Austin said, guiding the horses down the street to a building with a hand-painted sign that read "Doc Wheeler, Physician." "Are you ill?" Emma asked, concerned. "No, but I thought you might want to meet the doctor." Julia Wheeler is the closest thing this town has to female society that does not involve the saloon girls, and she is good people. Dr. Julia Wheeler was a surprise. Emma had never met a female physician before, and the woman who opened the door to their knock was not what she expected. She was perhaps 30 years old, with dark hair pinned back severely, intelligent brown eyes, and a no-nonsense manner that reminded Emma of the best teachers she had known as a child. "Austin Quentin, as I live and breathe. What brings you to town twice in as many days? You are usually so much the hermit that people forget you exist." Julia's eyes moved to Emma, and interest sparked in them. "And who is this?" "Dr. Wheeler, this is Emma Oliverson. She arrived yesterday from Pennsylvania. We are going to be married in December." "Mail order?" Julia asked bluntly. "Yes," Emma said, lifting her chin slightly. Julia grinned. "Good for you. I came out here 5 years ago to set up practice, and people still look at me sideways sometimes. Women who take their futures into their own hands have to stick together. Come in, both of you. I will make tea." The interior of the doctor's office was clean and organized, with a waiting area, an examination room visible through an open door, and living quarters in the back. Julia led them to a small kitchen and put a kettle on the stove. "How are you finding Wyoming Territory?" Julia asked Emma, pulling out cups and saucers. "Overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying, all of those at once." Emma found herself relaxing under Julia's direct gaze. There was no judgment there, only interest. "That is an honest answer." Most brides who come out here try to pretend they are not scared. Fear is healthy. It keeps you alert. Julia poured the tea once it was ready. Austin, you are one of the good ones, but Emma, you need to know that if you ever need help, if anything goes wrong, you can come to me, day or night. Understood. Emma felt a rush of gratitude. Thank you. That means more than you know. I mean it. Women out here need to support each other. The frontier can be hard on us in ways it is not hard on men. Julia turned to Austin. And you, sir, need to make sure she gets to town regularly. Isolation is dangerous. She needs friends and community. Already planned on it, Austin said. Weekly trips at minimum, more if possible. They stayed for another hour, and Emma found herself genuinely liking Julia. The doctor was frank and funny, with stories about her medical training in Boston and her decision to move west after her fiancé died. She had decided that if she was going to be alone, she might as well be alone somewhere she could be useful and independent. The ride back to the ranch was quieter, both of them tired from the early start and the socializing. But it was a comfortable quiet, and when Austin pointed out a golden eagle soaring above them, Emma felt her breath catch at the beauty of it. Tomorrow, if you want, we can start on your list, Austin said as they pulled up to the house. I think lesson 1 should be riding. You will need to know how to handle a horse properly if you are going to live out here. It is a practical skill as well as something you want to learn. I would like that, Emma said. I have ridden before, but only gentle horses on short rides. I want to really know how to ride. Then I will teach you. That evening, Emma cooked a proper dinner with the new supplies, making fried chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, and biscuits that were actually light and fluffy. She even managed a simple cobbler with some of the dried apples. Austin ate like a man who had been starving, complimenting every dish, and she felt a warm satisfaction at being able to contribute something concrete to their household. After dinner, as they sat in the rocking chairs on the porch watching the stars emerge, Austin said, "Tell me another dream from your journal, something we have not talked about yet." Emma thought about it, then said, "I want to learn to dance." Really dance, not just the stilted patterns I learned from my aunt. I want to dance the way people do when they are truly happy, when they let the music move through them. There is a barn dance in town every few months. The next one is in October. I am not the best dancer, but I know the basics. We could practice here and then go to the dance together. Would that work? You would do that? Go to a dance? Emma looked at him in surprise. You do not seem like the dancing type. Austin laughed, the sound easy and genuine. I am not particularly. But if it matters to you, then it matters. That is what partnership means, Emma. We support each other's happiness. Emma felt something shift in her chest, something that might have been the first real tendril of affection beginning to grow. Thank you, Austin, for all of this, for taking me seriously. Thank you for coming all this way on nothing but hope and a few letters. That took real courage. The stars were incredible, just as Austin had promised. The Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light, and Emma could see more stars than she had thought existed in the universe. They sat in comfortable silence, rocking gently, and Emma thought that maybe this could work. Maybe she had found something real. The next morning, true to his word, Austin brought out a gentle mare named Daisy. She was a pretty chestnut with a white blaze on her face, and her eyes were kind. Daisy is patient and even-tempered, Austin said, stroking the horse's neck. She is a good teacher. First, I want you to get comfortable just being around her, touching her, understanding how she moves and thinks. Emma approached slowly, extending her hand for Daisy to sniff. The mare's breath was warm against her palm, and when Emma stroked the soft nose, she felt some of her nervousness fade. Austin taught her how to brush the horse properly, how to check hooves, how to saddle and bridle correctly. He was patient and thorough, answering every question and never making her feel foolish for not knowing something. When it was finally time to mount, Emma felt her heart racing, but Austin stood close, his hand ready to steady her. "I have got you. You are safe." Daisy has carried complete beginners before and she knows her job. Emma put her foot in the stirrup and swung up, and suddenly she was high off the ground, sitting astride the horse. Her first instinct was to panic, but Austin's hand was on her knee, steadying. "Breathe. Feel how she is standing underneath you. She is solid and calm. You are safe." His voice was low and soothing, and Emma took a breath, then another. Slowly, she began to relax into the saddle. They spent an hour just walking around the corral with Austin on foot beside her, teaching her how to sit properly, how to hold the reins, how to use her legs and wait to communicate with the horse. By the end of the lesson, Emma was sweating and sore but exhilarated. "You did well," Austin said, helping her down. "Really well. You have good instincts. When can we do it again?" Emma asked, surprising herself with her eagerness. "Tomorrow, if you want, and the next day. Every day until you feel confident." Over the next weeks, a pattern emerged. Emma would wake and make breakfast while Austin did the early morning chores. After they ate, they would work on her riding, and Emma progressed quickly from walking to trotting to cantering. She loved the feeling of movement, the partnership with the animal beneath her, the sense of freedom that came with speed. Afternoons were spent on ranch work. Emma learned to tend the chickens, gathering eggs and feeding them. She learned to milk the cow, work that left her hands aching at first, but grew easier with practice. She helped Austin mend fences, hammer rails, and move hay. The work was harder than anything she had done in Pennsylvania, but it was also more satisfying. At the end of each day, she could see what she had accomplished. Evenings, they would cook together, eat, and then sit on the porch or by the fire, talking. Austin told her about his dreams of building a larger herd, of maybe adding sheep eventually, of making the ranch into something that could support a family comfortably. Emma read to him from the few books they had, and she was surprised by how much he enjoyed Shakespeare. His favorite was Much Ado About Nothing, and he laughed at the banter between Beatrice and Benedict in a way that made her see the humor she had missed reading alone. "They pretend to hate each other, but they are perfectly matched," Austin said one evening. "That is what a good marriage should be. Two people who understand each other and choose each other anyway." "Is that what you want?" Emma asked, looking up from the book. "It is what I hope we can build," Austin said honestly, "but it takes time. You cannot force understanding." On Sundays, they went to church, and Emma began to know the community. There was Margaret Foster from the general store, who always had a kind word. Julia Wheeler, who invited Emma to visit during the week when she came to town for supplies. The Patterson family from the neighboring ranch, with their 3 sons and 2 daughters, all of them friendly and welcoming. Reverend Matthews, who proved to be both wise and kind in their counseling sessions. 6 weeks into her time at the ranch, Emma realized she had not thought about her old life in Pennsylvania for days at a time. She was too busy living her new life, too engaged with the work and the land and the man who was slowly becoming less of a stranger and more of a partner. One morning in late October, Austin saddled 2 horses instead of just Daisy. "I think you are ready for a longer ride. Want to see the upper pasture? It is about an hour from here and the view is incredible." Emma felt a thrill of excitement mixed with nervousness. "Just the 2 of us? That far out? You are good enough now. I trust you and I trust Daisy. But if you would rather wait, we can." "No, I want to go." They packed a lunch in saddlebags and set out, riding side by side through the golden grass. Emma felt the rhythm of Daisy's gait beneath her, felt the cool October wind on her face, and experienced a rush of pure joy. This was what she had dreamed of. This freedom, this partnership with a powerful animal, this sense of being part of the landscape rather than just looking at it. The upper pasture was everything Austin had promised. It sat higher on the hillside, overlooking the valley with a view that stretched for miles. The aspen trees had turned gold, creating patches of brilliant color among the dark evergreens. A small stream burbled through the grass, and a herd of cattle grazed peacefully in the distance. They dismounted and let the horses drink from the stream while they sat on a fallen log and ate the sandwiches Emma had packed that morning. The silence was complete except for the wind and the water, and it felt sacred somehow. "Thank you for bringing me here," Emma said softly. "This is beautiful. I wanted you to see it. This is my favorite spot on the whole property. I come here when I need to think or when I need to remember why I work so hard." Austin was quiet for a moment, then said, "Emma, we have been living together for 6 weeks now. We are halfway through the time we agreed to give this. How are you feeling about everything? Honestly." Emma took a breath, considering her words carefully. "I am happier than I have been in years, maybe happier than I have ever been. The work is hard, but it is satisfying. I love the land, I love learning new skills. I feel useful and valued in a way I never did in Pennsylvania." She paused. "And I like you, Austin, more than I expected to. You are kind and patient, and you make me laugh. You have kept every promise you made in your letters and then some." "But," he heard the hesitation in her voice, "but I am also scared. What if this feeling does not last? What if I am caught up in the newness of everything, and in 6 months I realize I have made a terrible mistake?" "What if you realize that?" Austin nodded slowly. "Those are fair fears. I have thought the same things. But here is what I know. I wake up every morning looking forward to seeing you. I enjoy our conversations. I admire how hard you work and how brave you are. When something happens during the day, you are the person I want to tell about it. I cannot promise you that we will never have problems or disagreements, but I can promise that I will always try to work through them with you. And I think what we have is real, Emma. I think it can grow into something deep and lasting if we let it." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "I want that too. I did not expect to feel this way so quickly." "Neither did I." Austin reached out and took her hand, the first time he had initiated that kind of touch. His hand was warm and rough, and it felt right. "So maybe we do not wait the full 2 months. Maybe we move the wedding up." "Are you sure?" "I am sure that I want you in my life permanently. I am sure that you are the best thing that has happened to me since I came to Wyoming. I am sure that I am falling in love with you, Emma Oliverson, and I do not want to wait any longer to make you my wife properly." Emma felt her breath catch. "You love me." "I do. I know we agreed to take time and be practical, but somewhere along the way, practicality turned into something much more. You do not have to say it back. I just wanted you to know where I stand." Emma looked at their joined hands, then up at his face, at the sincerity and hope she saw there. She thought about the past 6 weeks, about all the small kindnesses, the laughter, the way he had taken every one of her dreams seriously and helped her start making them come true. She thought about how safe she felt with him, how seen, how valued. "I love you too," she said, and knew it was true. "I think I started falling the day I arrived and you offered to help with my journal. No one has ever cared about my dreams before." Austin's face lit up with a smile that was almost blinding in its joy. "Then let us get married as soon as Reverend Matthews will allow it. We can still have the big wedding in December if you want that, but I want us to be properly married. I want you to be my wife in truth." "Yes," Emma said. "Yes, I want that too." They talked to Reverend Matthews the following Sunday, and he agreed to marry them quietly the next week, with a larger celebration to follow in December for the community. The Reverend's wife and Julia Wheeler stood as witnesses when Austin and Emma spoke their vows in the small church on a Tuesday afternoon in early November. Emma wore the good dress she had made from the fabric Austin had bought her, a deep blue that brought out her eyes. Austin wore a new white shirt under his Sunday vest, and he had gotten a haircut in town that morning. When they exchanged rings, simple gold bands Austin had ordered from the general store, Emma felt the rightness of it settle into her bones. "You may kiss your bride," Reverend Matthews said with a smile. Austin cupped Emma's face gently in his hands and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. It was Emma's first real kiss, and it made her knees weak and her heart race. That night, there was no talk of Austin sleeping in the loft. They went to bed together in the small bedroom, and if Emma was nervous, Austin's gentleness and patience eased her fears. He took his time, murmuring words of love and encouragement, making sure she felt safe and cherished. And when they finally came together as husband and wife, Emma felt a completeness she had never known existed. Afterwards, lying in Austin's arms, her head on his chest listening to his heartbeat, Emma said, "I cannot believe this is real, that I get to have this." "Believe it," Austin said, pressing a kiss to her hair. "You are mine and I am yours, and we are going to build something beautiful together." The next weeks were a blur of happiness punctuated by hard work. Emma threw herself into preparing for winter, canning vegetables from the root cellar, preserving meat, making sure they had enough supplies laid in. Austin worked on winterizing the barn and making sure the animals would be protected from the harsh weather to come. They also worked on Emma's list of dreams. Austin taught her to shoot, starting with a small revolver and working up to a rifle. Emma had a good eye and a steady hand, and by the end of a week of practice, she could hit a target consistently at 20 yards. "Why did you want to learn this?" Austin asked one afternoon as Emma reloaded. "Because I never want to be helpless," Emma said honestly. "Because out here, being able to protect yourself and your home is important, and because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something difficult and maybe a little dangerous." "You are one of the strongest people I have ever met," Austin said, and the admiration in his voice made Emma glow. They practiced dancing in the evenings, with Austin humming tunes and counting steps, until Emma felt comfortable with waltzes and reels. She stepped on his toes more than once, and they both laughed until they had to stop and catch their breath. The barn dance in late October was everything Emma had hoped for. The whole community turned out, and the barn had been decorated with lanterns and fall leaves. A group of musicians played fiddles and a guitar, and the dancing was lively and joyful. Emma danced with Austin most of the night, but also with some of the Patterson sons and other ranchers from the area. Women she barely knew complimented her dress, and Margaret Foster pulled her aside to tell her how happy she seemed. "Austin is transformed," Margaret said. "He was always a good man, but he was so serious, so focused on work. Now he smiles. You have been good for him." "He has been good for me too," Emma said, watching her husband talk with some of the other ranchers across the room. "Better than I ever imagined." That night, riding home under a 3/4 moon, Austin said, "Did you have fun? So much fun. That was exactly what I dreamed of. Thank you for dancing with me, even though I know you would rather have been talking horses with the other men." "I would rather be wherever you are," Austin said simply. "That is the truth of it." November brought the first real snow, a light dusting that made everything look magical. Emma stood on the porch watching it fall, wrapped in a warm shawl Austin had bought her, and felt a deep contentment. "Come back inside before you freeze," Austin called from the doorway. "I made coffee." Emma turned and smiled at him. "In a minute, I am memorizing this." "Why?" Because I want to remember exactly how I felt in this moment, how happy I am, how grateful. Austin came out onto the porch despite the cold, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Write it in your journal, that way you will never forget. Emma had been writing in her journal regularly, documenting not just her dreams but their fulfillment. Learning to ride, check. Making a perfect apple pie, check. She had finally gotten her grandmother's recipe right the week before. Seeing magnificent country, check. Learning to shoot, check. Having a garden, well, that would have to wait for spring, but she had already planned it out on paper. Sleeping under the stars, they had done that twice now, spreading blankets in the meadow on warm September nights before the cold set in. Reading Shakespeare, she was halfway through the complete works, and having a marriage where her husband talked to her like she had thoughts worth hearing. That box was checked every single day. The December wedding celebration was bigger than Emma had expected. The whole town seemed to turn out, cramming into the church to witness the renewal of their vows in a proper public ceremony. Emma wore a new dress, cream-colored with lace at the collar and cuffs, that she had sewn herself with Margaret's help. Austin wore a new suit that made him look both handsome and slightly uncomfortable, and Emma loved him all the more for enduring it. The reception was held at the town hall, with tables of food brought by every family in attendance. There was music and dancing and toasts that made Emma blush and laugh. Julia Wheeler gave a speech about finding happiness in unexpected places that had half the women in the room in tears. Margaret Foster provided a cake that was 3 layers tall and decorated with sugar flowers. As Emma danced with her husband in front of their whole community, she thought about the girl who had boarded a train in Pennsylvania just 3 months earlier, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. That girl had felt so small and uncertain. The woman she was now felt strong and sure, anchored by love and partnership. "What are you thinking about?" Austin asked, spinning her gently. "About how much has changed, how much I have changed. You were always strong, Emma. You just needed a place where you could let that strength show." Winter settled in hard in January, with temperatures dropping below zero and snow piling high against the house. They were snowed in for days at a time, but Emma did not mind. The house was warm, their supplies were adequate, and she had Austin. They spent the long evenings reading, playing cards, talking, and making love. Emma learned the geography of her husband's body, the places that made him sigh, the ways to bring him pleasure. He was an attentive and generous lover, always making sure she found her release before seeking his own. In late January, Emma realized her monthly courses had not come. She waited another week to be sure, then told Austin over breakfast one morning, "Are you certain?" His face went through several expressions at once, joy and fear and hope. "As certain as I can be. I will need to see Julia to confirm, but I think I am carrying our baby." Austin came around the table and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "A baby. We are going to have a baby. Are you happy?" Emma asked, though she could feel his joy in the tension of his body. Happy does not begin to cover it. Terrified, yes. But so happy, Emma. So incredibly happy. Julia confirmed the pregnancy in early February, estimating that Emma would deliver in late August or early September. "You are healthy and strong," Julia said after her examination. "You should do fine, but I want to see you regularly, especially as you get further along." "Will you be able to come out to the ranch when it is time?" Emma asked, fear creeping into her voice. The idea of giving birth was frightening enough without adding the complication of being far from medical help. "I will come," Julia promised. "Austin can ride in to get me when your time is near, or at the first sign of labor. We will make sure you are taken care of." As winter slowly released its grip and spring arrived, Emma's body began to change. Her belly swelled, and she felt the baby move for the first time in late April, a flutter like bird wings against the inside of her skin. She grabbed Austin's hand and placed it on her stomach, and they both froze, waiting. When the baby moved again, Austin's face transformed with wonder. "That is our child," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Our baby." "Our baby," Emma agreed, feeling tears on her cheeks. Spring brought new work. Emma planted her garden, a large plot that Austin had helped her fence against deer and rabbits. She put in vegetables and herbs, but also flowers, lupines and columbines and Indian paintbrush, colors to bring her joy. She worked carefully, aware of the life growing inside her, but refusing to be treated as fragile. In May, they went to Cheyenne for a few days. A trip Austin insisted on so Emma could see the territorial capital and do some shopping for the baby. The train ride was long but comfortable, and Cheyenne was larger and more sophisticated than Guthrie, with brick buildings and paved streets and stores full of goods. They bought fabric for baby clothes, which Emma would sew herself. Soft flannel and cotton in whites and yellows. They bought a cradle from a furniture maker, simple but beautifully made, that Austin carefully packed for the trip home. Emma bought yarn and needles and spent the train ride back to Guthrie starting to knit tiny socks. Summer came hot and dry, and Emma grew large with the baby. She moved more slowly, her back aching, her feet swelling. But she was happy, gloriously happy, even with the discomfort. Austin was attentive without being overbearing, helping with the heavy work but letting her maintain her independence in the things she could still manage. "I thought pregnancy would make me feel weak," Emma said one evening in July, sitting on the porch with her feet up. "But it makes me feel powerful. I am growing a whole person inside my body. That is incredible." "You are incredible," Austin said, his hand resting on her belly, feeling the baby kick and roll. "Strong and beautiful, and I love you more every day." In mid-August, Emma woke in the middle of the night with a cramping sensation low in her belly. She lay still for a moment, assessing, then shook Austin awake. "I think it is starting." Austin was up immediately, pulling on clothes, his hands shaking slightly. "Are you sure? How bad is the pain?" "Not bad yet, but I think this is labor. You should ride for Julia." "I am not leaving you alone." "Austin, I will be fine for a few hours. You need to get Julia. That is more important than staying here and worrying." He clearly hated the idea, but he knew she was right. He helped her into the rocking chair, made sure she had water and supplies within reach, and then rode hard for town. Emma sat in the pre-dawn darkness, breathing through the contractions as they slowly intensified, and felt strangely calm. This was what women had been doing since the beginning of time. She could do this. Austin returned with Julia just after sunrise. The doctor took one look at Emma and nodded approvingly. "You are doing well. First babies usually take a while. Let me examine you and see where we are." The labor lasted through the day and into the evening. It was hard and painful and exhausting, but Emma felt Austin's presence beside her the whole time, holding her hand, supporting her back, bringing her water, murmuring encouragement. Julia was calm and competent, checking on Emma regularly, offering guidance but not interfering with the natural process. As the sun set on August 28, 1884, Emma gave birth to a son. He came into the world squalling, healthy and pink and perfect. Julia placed him on Emma's chest, and Emma looked down at the tiny face, the dark hair, the miniature fingers that gripped her thumb with surprising strength, and felt a love so overwhelming it nearly stopped her heart. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "We have been waiting for you." Austin was crying openly, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his son. "He is perfect. Emma, he is absolutely perfect." "Have you chosen a name?" Julia asked, cleaning up efficiently while giving them space for this moment. Emma looked at Austin. They had discussed names but never settled on anything definite. "What do you think? You are his father." Austin touched the baby's tiny hand with one finger, his expression full of awe. "I always liked the name Samuel. It was my grandfather's name, Samuel Quentin. Does that sound right to you?" "Samuel," Emma repeated, testing it out. "Sam. Yes, I like that. Samuel Quentin, welcome to the world." Julia stayed through the night to make sure both Emma and the baby were doing well, then rode back to town the next morning with a promise to return in a few days to check on them. Emma spent those first days in a haze of exhaustion and joy, learning to nurse the baby, learning his cries and his needs. Austin was a devoted father from the first moment, changing diapers without complaint, walking the floor with Samuel when he fussed, and watching over both his wife and son with fierce protectiveness. "I never knew I could feel this much," Austin said one night, holding Samuel while Emma tried to get a few hours of sleep. "It is almost frightening how much I love him, how much I love you." The seasons turned and Samuel grew. He was a healthy baby, meeting all his milestones, and Emma documented every moment in her journal. His first smile, his first laugh, the way he reached for his father's face. She wrote about the challenges too, the exhaustion, the times she felt overwhelmed, but always with the underlying thread of deep gratitude. The following spring, when Samuel was 8 months old and starting to pull himself up on furniture, Emma and Austin stood in the garden she was planting for the second time. The previous year's garden had been successful enough that they had been able to sell vegetables in town, bringing in extra money. This year, Emma was expanding it. "You ever miss Pennsylvania?" Austin asked, watching her mark out rows with string. Emma considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss knowing what to expect. I miss my parents, though they have been gone so long it is more memory than actual missing. But no, I do not miss my life there. This is my life, Austin. You and Samuel in this land. This is where I belong. I am glad you came. I am glad you were brave enough to answer my advertisement. I am glad you were the kind of man worth coming for." Emma stood, brushing dirt from her hands. "We should add to my journal a new list of dreams." That evening, after Samuel was asleep in his cradle, they sat at the table and Emma opened her journal to a fresh page. "What do we dream now?" she asked. "A house with more rooms," Austin said immediately. "Samuel will need his own room soon, and I hope he will not be an only child." "We need more space." Emma wrote that down. "What else?" "I would like to add sheep to the ranch. Diversify. The market for wool is good. I would like to learn to preserve food even better. Maybe build a proper spring house for keeping things cool. I would like to teach Samuel to ride as soon as he is big enough. I would like to visit the Rockies, really visit them, maybe camp there for a few days. As a family." They filled 2 pages with dreams, some practical, some fanciful, all of them possible. And over the next years, they worked on making those dreams come true, just as they had with Emma's first list. Austin built the addition to the house, 2 new bedrooms and a proper parlor, working through the winter months when ranch work was lighter. The house was still modest, but it was comfortable and filled with love. Emma gave birth to a daughter in 1886, whom they named Alice. She had Emma's gray eyes and Austin's smile, and Samuel was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything. They did add sheep, and the wool proved to be a good source of income. The ranch prospered, not making them wealthy but providing a solid, comfortable living. In the summer of 1887, when Samuel was 3 and Alice was 1, they took a family trip to the Rocky Mountains. They camped for 5 days, fishing in clear streams, hiking through alpine meadows full of wildflowers, and sleeping under skies so filled with stars they seemed to press down on the earth. Samuel ran through the meadows with endless energy, and Alice sat on a blanket, laughing at everything she saw. Austin and Emma made love quietly in their tent, mindful of the children sleeping nearby, and Emma thought her heart might burst from happiness. In 1889, Emma gave birth to twin boys, Daniel and David, and the house was suddenly chaos. 4 children under 6 years old was exhausting, but Austin was a fully involved father, and the older children helped where they could. The Patterson family's daughters often came over to help, and Emma formed close friendships with other ranch wives in the area. Julia Wheeler remained a close friend, visiting regularly and always available when medical needs arose. Margaret Foster became almost like a mother to Emma, offering advice and support. The community Emma had been so nervous to enter had embraced her completely. By 1895, 12 years after Emma had arrived in Wyoming Territory, Wyoming had achieved statehood and the town of Guthrie had grown substantially. The ranch had grown too. They now had a substantial herd of cattle and sheep, and Austin had hired 2 ranch hands to help with the work. The house had been expanded again, and they had built a new, larger barn. Emma looked around her at the life they had built. Samuel was almost 11, serious and hardworking like his father but with a gentle humor all his own. Alice was 9, creative and stubborn and absolutely fearless. The twins were 6, identical in appearance but opposite in temperament, Daniel quiet and thoughtful, David loud and energetic. "You ever look back at that first journal entry you made when you arrived?" Austin asked one evening. They were sitting on the porch, watching the children play in the yard before dinner. At 33, Austin had some gray in his hair and lines around his eyes from squinting into the sun, but he was still strong and vital. Emma, at 33 herself, felt more confident and capable than she ever had in her youth. "Sometimes," Emma said, "I was so scared, so uncertain. You were also so brave. You came all this way on nothing but hope. I came because of you. Because your letters promised partnership, and you kept that promise." Emma took his hand, their fingers intertwining automatically after years of practice. "Every dream in that journal came true, Austin. Every single one, and we made new dreams and made those come true too." "Do we have any dreams left?" Austin asked with a smile. Emma thought about it. "I dream about watching our children grow up happy and healthy. I dream about growing old with you, sitting on this porch when we are ancient and gray. I dream about grandchildren someday. I dream about our ranch being a place where our family can thrive for generations." She looked at him. "What do you dream?" "The same things. All of that." Austin lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it. "But mostly I dream about tomorrow, and the day after that, and all the days we get to spend together. Because every day with you is better than anything I could have imagined when I was a young man alone on this land." Samuel called that dinner was ready. Alice had helped him cook, and the twins had set the table. The family gathered in the kitchen, crowded around the table that had been built large to accommodate their growing brood. They held hands while Austin said grace, thanking God for their food, their health, their family, and all the blessings of their life. As Emma looked around the table at her husband and children, at the life they had built together, she thought about the girl on the train clutching her journal of dreams. That girl had hoped for love and partnership and a life of meaning. She had gotten all of that and so much more. After dinner, after the children were in bed, Emma pulled out her old journal, the one she had brought with her from Pennsylvania. The leather was more worn now, the pages filled with her handwriting chronicling years of dreams coming true. She turned to a blank page near the back, one of the few remaining, and began to write. Today, I am 33 years old, married for 12 years, mother to 4 beautiful children. When I started this journal at 15, I could not have imagined the life I would have. I dreamed small then, dreamed of simple things because I could not envision anything greater. But Austin taught me to dream bigger, and together we made those dreams real. If I could speak to that scared 21-year-old girl on the train, I would tell her that the fear is worth it. The risk is worth it. The leap into the unknown is worth it. Because on the other side of fear is a love deeper than oceans, a partnership stronger than mountains, a family that fills every empty space in your heart. I would tell her that some mail-order bride stories do have happy endings. That some cowboys really do help make every dream come true. She closed the journal and set it carefully on the shelf where she kept it. Tomorrow they would wake and work and live their lives. There would be challenges ahead, certainly. Children to raise, a ranch to run, all the normal difficulties of life. But they would face those challenges together, as they had faced everything else. With love, with partnership, with the absolute certainty that they were exactly where they were meant to be, with exactly who they were meant to be with. Emma went to the bedroom where Austin was already in bed, reading by lamplight. He looked up when she entered and smiled, the same smile that had greeted her on the train platform 12 years ago, and her heart still skipped a beat. "Come to bed," he said, setting the book aside. "It has been a long day." Emma climbed in beside him, settling into the space that had become hers, her head on his chest, his arm around her shoulders. Outside, Wyoming wind moved through the grass, and somewhere an owl called. The house was quiet except for the occasional sound from one of the children's rooms. "I love you," Emma said, as she did every night. "I love you," Austin replied, as he did every night. "Thank you for saying yes to a stranger's advertisement. Thank you for being brave enough to come west. Thank you for building this life with me." "Thank you for seeing me," Emma said. "For taking my dreams seriously. For making everyone come true." They fell asleep like that, wrapped together, two people who had started as strangers and become everything to each other. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had witnessed their first night together, that would witness countless more nights to come. Years continued to pass. The children grew. Samuel eventually took over much of the ranch work, proving to be a natural cattleman with his father's patience and his mother's creativity. He married a teacher from town in 1902, and they built a house on the far edge of the property. Alice became a veterinarian, studying in Denver and returning to Guthrie to practice, one of the first female veterinarians in Wyoming. She married a fellow veterinarian, and they opened a practice together. Daniel became a lawyer, moving to Cheyenne but visiting often. David followed in his father's footsteps, ranching and eventually buying the Patterson property when that family moved on. Emma and Austin became grandparents, and then great-grandparents. The ranch they had built together stayed in the family, growing and prospering. The original house was preserved even as newer, more modern structures were built around it. Emma's journals, all 20 of them by the end of her life, were kept in a special box, a record of a life fully lived. In 1925, at the age of 63, Austin died peacefully in his sleep, Emma beside him as she had been for 42 years. Emma was devastated by the loss, but she was also grateful for every day they had been given. She lived another 8 years, surrounded by children and grandchildren, spending her days working in her garden, writing in her journals, and telling stories about the early days to anyone who would listen. When Emma died in 1933 at 71 years old, She was buried beside Austin on a hill overlooking the ranch, the spot where he had first brought her to see the view all those years ago. Her gravestone read, Emma Oliverson Quentin, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, dreamer. And in the house, on a special shelf in what had become the family library, her journals remained, a testament to the power of dreams, the courage of a young woman who risked everything for a better life, and the love story of a mail-order bride and a cowboy who promised to make every one of her dreams come true, and did.